Hi, my name is Nilsson, and in this video I'll be going over the new sample projects included with Spine 3.4. I already went over the tank project, but I'll be going over it again just to go into a little more detail. But also I'll be going over the Stretchy Man project and the Vine project. As you can see, I already have the Stretchy Man project open, and I'm just going to go to animate mode, and then I'm just going to let it run. Zoom out a little. And you can see the legs are stretching a lot here. And the way it's set up is that you can see if I zoom in, we have a lot of these green bones here. But we also have these large bones, which is the bones that are controlled by IK. And underneath there, we have a path. And the small green bones that I showed you before are constrained to this path. So to show you how this works is I'm just gonna quickly find the constraint here. And this one is called front leg path. And on this path, I have these 8 green bones that are constrained to the path. And if you go here, you notice I have the spacing set to 12.5. I've set the spacing to percentage. And down here, I've set it to change scale. Now, the reason I've set it to 12.5 is that I have 8 bones, and if I divide 100% by 8, I get 12.5. This makes sure that the bones are always using up the full length of the path. So if I take the point here, the end point of the path, and move it, you can see the bones, they will keep stretching on the path. They will stay on the path and space on it evenly. Now all these green bones, they all have the same length. So you can see here, if I go to set up here quickly, 37.2, if I select all of them, you see 37.2 for all these bones. Now the other leg here has slightly different length, but that's just because I haven't been completely accurate on it, but it doesn't matter really. So, but the same settings apply here. I have 8 bones on the rear leg or the back leg, and they also have the spacing set to 12.5. Now, before I go into more detail on this rig here, I'm just going to quickly create a new project and show you how I set this up. I'm not going to bind anything, but I'm just going to set it up quickly. So what we'll do is we'll create a new bone here, and we'll call this one hip. And then under that, I'm just going to create 8 bones. So that's 6 bones, and that's 8 bones. And then after that, I'm just going to select all these bones here and give them the same length. We'll just give them a length of 30. And then I want to move them into place. But I don't have to do this manually since I'm creating a path. I'm just going to leave them as is now. So I'm going to go to select the root bone. I'm going to create a new path. And we'll just call this one path. Then I'm going to click once, twice, and then the third time. Right click, close this window here. I'm going to move these points slightly. And use that as the path for my leg. Once this is done, select all the bones. I'm going to create a new path constraint. Click the path. And we're going to call this one path CNS, so short for constraint in my world. And then I need to set the spacing. As you can see, the bones here, they are keeping the length they had. So what I'll do is I'll set the spacing to 12.5, change this to percent, and set this to change scale. So now the bones scale along the path. If I go back here and take what it used to have, you can see the bones, they have the correct spacing, but they are not scaled correctly. So set this to change scale again. I'm just going to quickly change the color of these bones so I can easily see them. I'm going to change them to bright green. And now what I need to do is create the actual IK bones. So once again, I'll select the bone, the hip bone this time, click create these new bones, like this, right click, select both bones, click new, IK constraint, and I'm just gonna create IK target. So, and now we have the IK bone here, but nothing is moving, and this is because I haven't yet weighted the path to the IK bones. So I'm gonna select this path, then I'm gonna click bind over here on the weights. Click the tool as well so we can actually see the weights, and click bind again, sorry. Select these two bones, right click, and now these the path vertices have been weighted to the bones. But since it's the path, I have to go in and actually weigh the vertices manually. So what I'll do is I'll select this bone. You can see it's selected here. Then I'm gonna select vertices that I want to have 100%. I'm gonna left click and drag up. Then I'm gonna select these vertices here and just set them to 50%. And now if I go out of the weight tool and I select the IK target, you can see now I have the path following the IK bones. Now the benefit of this is that I can actually control a long chain of bones with 2 bone IK. If I had to manually animate all these bones for a leg, for example, I would lose the advantages of using IK, and I would be getting maybe quite a lot of the foot sliding when he's walking or whatever animation he's doing. Now, if I can actually make this rig a little better, and the way to do that is if I select the path again, and let's select the weights tool. So, for example, if I drag these handles here, let me just quickly show an example without. If I drag these handles here and I move this IK tag, you can see I get a much sharper bend. So it actually looks like a knee now. Now, if I take these handles here again and move them up, you can see we get the nice smooth bend. That was a little too much though. So since I don't want to actually do this manually, what I'll do instead is I'll move this back down. And then I'm going to create another bone. And we'll just rotate it slightly. This doesn't need to be very accurate. Select the path and then the weights tool. And then I'm going to bind these vertices here to this bone. So now if I select these vertices and this bone, drag it up, I'm going to give this about 50%. I don't want it to be 100% because we still want to keep the smooth, we still want it to be affected by these bones as well. But now, for example, if I go out here again and I move this IK handle, I can select this bone and I can scale it up and down to change how much, how round I want the knee to bend. I can also rotate it just to give me a little more control. Now this isn't included in the Stretchy Man project because I just wanted him to have these round legs all the time. But this is one way you can get even more control of it. So if I go to animate mode and we'll have auto key on, so I'm just going to quickly key some movement here. So, and let's say we want the knee to be sharp here. So at the first frame, set the scale to actually, let's set this back to 1, go to 20, scale it down. So, and then here, I'm just going to set it back to how it was. So now you can see, so I scrub the timeline, the knee gets really sharp here, and then here we get it round and smooth again. So if I open up the Stretchy Man project, see what is actually going on, and is instead of going in and editing those vertices manually or deforming the path manually by setting deform keys, I just control it by a bone that I scale up and down. So I could be doing the same here. Now, since I don't have this bone, if I wanted to make the knee bend more sharp, I would have to go in and move these manually like so. So once again, just gonna play it back. You can see there's a nice sneaky animation that he's doing here. So the next project here is the tank project, and even though I did show this in the previous video, the project wasn't completed at the time and some changes have been made. So I'm just going to go over every thing related to paths, but also some of the other constraints that I've put in here. So if I expand the constraints node, we see I have a constraint here called the cannon target. This is just an IK constraint for a single bone. Up here, I have another target, and this is the machine gun target. You see, if I move this, nothing happens, and this is because the mix is set to 0. Now, if I set this to 100, see now if I move this, the machine gun here is also moving. I'm just going to undo this. Then we have all the wheels, and I have these constraints here, these transform constraints. We have wheel big, wheel mid, 1, 2, 3, and then we have wheel small, 1 and 2. Now, the reason I made these is because all these wheels are rotating, and it's far easier for me to just go in and key one wheel, or in this case, 3 wheels, because we have the small wheels, the 3 small wheels here on top, and we have the 2 big wheels, and then we have the 6 medium wheels here. Now, the reason I set the transform constraints up is, for example, if I take the wheel big here, now you can see if I rotate this wheel over here also rotates because this has been constrained to this wheel or this bone here. Now, and the rotation, the mix is set to 100, but translation, scaling, and sharing doesn't have a weight. I also have the rotation offset set to just a random value that I plugged in, and this is so the wheels aren't always at the exact same position. So, for example, if I move this, you can see the wheel on the right over here is rotating. Once again, undo. And I did the same for the mid wheels. If I hover over here, you can see there's a red line going over here. And if I rotate this and see which wheels, or if I change the offset, you can see this wheel and this wheel are constrained to this. And then if I take this, see we have this wheel also constrained to this, but with a different offset. And then here, if I change this, it's just a furthest back wheel on the tank that is constrained to the front one. And the same up here with the small wheels. So the reason I made multiple constraints is so I could have various different offsets set. Now, if I go to the threads constraint here, which is a path constraint, and I'm going to set the mix to 0. See, this is the chain of bones that I have. And on each of these bones, I have 3 slots. I have the thread, which is the top part. And then I have these inside gizmos here. So I'm just gonna, and I have this in all of them. So I'm just gonna quickly minimize this so I can actually see what's going on. And then zoom out, change the rotation and translation to 100%. One thing to note here that is different from the Stretchyman project is that I'm using a spacing of 0 and it's set to length, not percent. And also down here, I'm using chain and not chain scale, even though the length of the path can change. So for example, if I move this down here, you can see there's a large gap up here. But the reason I made it this way is because these threads, they're made of metal on a tank, so they can't stretch. So to be able to do this, I also have these bones up here, and I call these the gravity bones. So, for example, if I move this up, like so, actually let me just let me just rotate this a little bit. So, oops, that's the wrong one. Move the position so we can find the first bone here. Now, if I move this up, you can see there's a gap here. I'm going to take these two, move them up. Just a little clearer, you can see the gap shows up here. And then, but if I move this bone upwards, and also the other bone upwards, so I can actually close this gap. And this is a little too much vertical movement, so the gravity bones up here won't be enough to actually keep the threads on the tank connected. But let me go into animate mode and then show you what goes on when it drives over this small rock here. If I scrub the timeline, see, I move these, and these bones are also moved up to make sure that I don't end up with like this gap in the threads. And I keep doing this. You can see here, especially if you notice this bone here, I'm just going to select it. See, it moves up to make sure I don't get the gap. And this is the previous video. I'd actually done, I'd actually set some deform keys and by moving these manually. But the plan for this tank is to create a sample of it being used in Unity, where these bones here are actually controlled by physics, by collisions. So, and the wheels as well. So when we drive over the rock, these will be pushed up automatically. And we want to try and control the entire tank by physics. So yeah. And that's really all there is to this project. The rest is, for example, if I move this, you can see this is the body of the bone. And if I move this, I'll rotate this around. You can see this is the entire body, while this one was up just the top part. So this null bone that I have down here also move these two bones here. So it gives you a lot of control by just parenting things in a nice way. I'm just going to play it back all the way so you can see it. And you can see the purple bones moving. So we start slow and then we stop here at the end. And the antenna up here moves. So this is also one of the things. So all this animation I've done here, I wouldn't need to do this. If we control everything by physics, I could actually send this to Unity without having any animations, and we're just going to manipulate everything at runtime. So once more, and there we go. So the last project I want to show in this video is the Vine project, and this one is actually really simple. It might have quite a lot of bones, but it's using the same methodology that the other projects that I just showed uses. So let's start by hiding the bones so you can see the path. We have this single path here, and then we have all these bones here. All these purple bones, which are the vine bones. And then I have the vine control bones. The reason I have these large bones is I wanted to be able to have the vine grow along the path smoothly, but also wanted to be able to control the general shape of the vine by these large bones, which is a lot easier to control than having these 13 bones here. If I go into the constraints, the way it's set up is I just used a spacing of 0 because I already had the bone set up correctly, and this time again chain scale, and this is so I can actually stretch the bones. Now if I go into animate mode, let me show you what happens. So at the first frame, we can't even see the vine. This is because all the bones have been the spacing set to -100 and the position to -10. So for example, if I change the position, you can see this arrow, it moves up along the path, and this is the position along the path. I'll undo that. The spacing, because we have it set to change scale, the spacing makes it so I can actually move or kind of scale the bones along the path. I could also just have selected all the bones and scaled them. So this is just much easier for me to do because it's far less things to actually set keys for. Now, in the animation itself, I'm not only doing this, I'm also scaling the bones. So for example, if I move up here, I select this bone, you can see it has a scale here. It's being scaled on the y-axis. This is to change the width. See, it moves up here slowly. This is so we not only just scale it along the path, but we also scale the width of the vine. And just play it back from start to finish. So zoom out. You can see what goes on here. And at the same time, these bones, the vine control bones, are just waving slightly in the wind, or at least it's supposed to look like that. So we scale up, we go further up, and then we contract it a little again, so it looks a little more alive. And once again, the path itself has been weighted to the vine control bones, just like the Stretchy Man project. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, you're welcome to use either Twitter, our forum, or you can ask directly here on YouTube, and I'll do my best to help you out. And we have more videos coming out very soon, and I'll be continuing the official videos on the Esoteric Software channel on YouTube. So bye for now.